only wanted me to say a little bit about them, but I'll just say they are residents of Aldermanic District 9, and we were intentional about inviting residents to support this candidate, both so they could hear and participate in deep ways, but also because we're about developing leaders in Aldermanic Districts 5 and 9. And so I want to introduce Delisha Tucker, who is a resident, Delisha Tucker, oh my Lord, Delisha Morris, who is a resident of Aldermanic District 9, as well as Shirley Funches Tucker, who is a wife, mother, and grandmother of 3, and has been a resident in the 9th District for over 44 years. Please welcome our moderators.
Thank you. Yes, Delisha Morris. I don't belong to Miss Tucker. I could if she wants to take me, though. I'm going to be sharing tonight's process to you all. We are going to begin with 3 questions from the African American Roundtable before moving to questions submitted through registrations and end with questions from our in-person audience. In-person guests, in order to submit questions, please use the index cards that have been provided to you. Write your name and contact information on the back side of those index cards and your question on the front. If you registered, then there is no reason to submit new questions. Candidates, unanswered questions will be submitted to you. So it is our expectation that you reach out directly to follow up. Everyone, please note that we have combined like questions, and though you may not hear your question verbatim, you might hear an answer to your question. We will not repeat questions. So if a question has already been answered, we will not re-ask. If questions are directed at an individual candidate, we will start with that candidate, let them answer, and follow up with the other candidate. To reiterate what Raisha said, personal attacks on candidates will not be acknowledged. Now to share some of the timekeeping procedures. To my right is our lovely timekeeper. Timekeeper, can you raise your hand? Can we give our timekeeper a hand? Thank you so much. Our timekeeper will be helping us tonight. Candidates will have a maximum of 2 minutes for their initial responses to our questions. Our timekeeper will raise a finger to indicate when that time is up. If the moderators, myself and Ms. Tucker, see a need to restate questions or follow up with probing or clarifying questions, candidates will receive an additional 2 minutes max to provide probing, clarifying, and additional responses. In this additional 2-minute period, our timekeeper will raise a red card, and when there is 1 minute left, she will stand. When that time is up, our moderators, myself and Ms. Tucker, we will redirect and move forward. I will now go ahead and read the bios. You guys should have that, and you can follow along with me. Miss Larissa Taylor is a mother of 3, military veteran, school teacher, and community advocate. Her service in the city of Milwaukee as a block watch captain for over 20 years has prepared her well for the opportunity to become the 9th District Alderwoman. Residents can be assured that their voices will be heard and their concerns are addressed at City Hall when she is elected. Taylor received a bachelor's degree in biology from Alverno College in 1998, an MA in Administration of Justice from Marquette University in 2005, and an MA in Education from Rockford University in 2007. She rounds that out with a PhD in Education, Cardinal Stritch University in 2011, and she is currently a special education teacher in MPS. Let's give Ms. Taylor a round of applause, please. Mr. Odell Ball is a lifelong educator that has worked on...
Moderator, Mr. Ball is gone. We're working on it.
Well, we will give his intro and we will wait for him to return before we give questions. Thank you. Mr. Odell Ball is a lifelong educator that has worked on numerous levels, including work as a college educator and administrator and as a K-12 teacher. He has led training for the Department of Education as well as for the DPI in Wisconsin. His desire to serve as a council member is based on his intent to bring positive change to the area. He loves and has raised his family for close to 30 years. His experience includes working in community development, technology, education, and drug and alcohol abuse prevention. He can't hear the applause, but let's give him a hand as well. Mr. Ball, can you hear us?
Again,
It's hard to hear him. Can you say something again, Mr. Ball?
testing, 1, 2, testing,
Okay,
1, 2.
that's better. All right.
I missed half the things that were said earlier.
It's okay. It was your glorious bio. All right. Do we think it's okay to begin? All right. Now that the bios have been read, I'm going to hand it over to my co-moderator to begin the first few questions.
Thank you, Rachel. My first question I will pose to Ms. Taylor. And again,
I can barely hear you, ma'am.
the first three questions are from the African American Roundtable. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. The first question I'm going to pose to Ms. Taylor. How do you plan to develop accessible relationships with residents in the district?
I plan to make myself available to the residents by, I'm sorry, hello?
I can't hear her response.
Can you guys hear me through here then? Okay. Hello? Okay,
Ma'am,
much
I
better.
can't hear her response.
Okay. I plan to make myself available through, I'd like to do maybe coffee at some point so that I can be available maybe a couple times a week. But I have been talking with residents and letting them know that anytime that they have any meetings, block watch meetings, condo board meetings, anything that they have where groups are getting together, that I'd like to be invited. They have already begun to invite me to many of those meetings, and I have attended them. I'd like to also, as I've mentioned to the residents, is do maybe a newsletter so that residents can be kept abreast of what's happening in the community. And also we can do texting and whatever modes of communication we can use, from social media to in-person, which I prefer in-person communication much better, but I will definitely be in touch with the residents using all modes of communication possible.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, and I'll pose that same question to you. How do you plan to develop accessible relationships with residents in the district?
The term accessible relationship is
Yes.
important. Accessible means that you are able to communicate back and forth. And relationship means that you're forming and learning about each other and what you are and what you're doing for the people. I don't want to sound repetitive, but newsletters and text messages are viable. But face-to-face contact is the preferred method for me. I like talking to people and getting exactly how they feel on certain issues. Also, using technology, Zoom is one aspect, as it is today, which isn't working as well as it should, but Zoom is one aspect of meeting that's viable to a whole range of people. Even people who don't know technology not as well as others can use a phone. It can reach a wide range of people. It can go from the ages from elderly to young, and they can all communicate in the same atmosphere.
Okay, thank you.
And it's key. It's key also to open the door and give them access to who I am, but also I know who they are and who the constituents are, because it's important that it is a relationship. It's not a one-way street. My duty is to serve the people, and to serve the people, I have to know what the people really want.
Thank you. The second question, and I'll begin this one with Ms. Taylor.
Okay.
The African American Roundtable has been demanding that Milwaukee create and fund participatory budgeting for the last few years. Participatory budgeting is a democratic process in which community members decide how to spend part of a public budget. It gives people real power over real money. What are your initial thoughts about establishing a participatory budgeting process at the city level?
Okay. That is an opportunity for many of the residents to have an input on what's happening, and so I like that idea. It also helps to establish a common ground among residents as well as the elected officials, and I think the important thing. And I like that it gives them an opportunity to be included on the decision making of what's happening. And the need would be to make sure that we adhere to the time constraints that we would have. But other than that, participatory budgeting is effective in that it, again, sets us all on a common ground.
So you would be willing to listen to the residents and consider participatory budgeting?
I would be willing to do just that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ball, I'll pose that question to you. The African American Roundtable has been demanding that Milwaukee create and fund participatory budgeting for the last few years. Participatory budgeting is a democratic process in which community members decide how to spend part of a public budget. It gives people real power over real money. What are your initial thoughts about establishing a participatory budgeting process on the city level?
I agree with establishing a participatory budget process. I think at the last ARPA task force meeting, I think I was one of the few people that advocated for a participatory budget process. And why I did so is because we represent the people. The people should have a say in how government is run. But a participatory budget process at the city level means that the alderperson will allocate the money, and that money is agreed to in his district or his or her district by the input of the people in the district. That is democracy at its best. And yes, I do agree with that.
Thank you. And our next two questions will come from Delisha.
Some district residents are fearful of collaborating with police in neighborhood or block watch capabilities and believe that the city's spending on police does not inherently keep them safe. To support those residents, what commitment will you bring to the Common Council around community safety, and how will you engage reevaluating how much Milwaukee spends on police? And that question will go to you first, Mr. Ball.
The police are a necessary force in our community. What we need to do is come up with a relationship between the police and the community. Police are there to serve and protect. Nothing less, nothing more. It's important that we have a relationship where we're communicating back and forth, we're creating a relationship with them as well. The police aren't going anywhere, and we aren't going anywhere. So it's important that we as people get together and join, do have a positive relationship. The fear of the police is something that can be addressed through learning, understanding, and communication. I think it's important that it happens. As an elder person, I think it's my role to make sure that those things are happening.
And at what ways or methods would you make that happen as our alderperson?
Well, one important method is through the block watch. Those captain reports at the block watch are important because they give information to the people to understand how the police is working for them and not against them. I think it's important that the block watch and for communications, and also, I'm a former director of board of directors for Police Athletic League. I was adamant about having police in the community, dealing with the people and being a part of the community. I think that's important because they are a part of the community, but they need to understand how much a part of the community they are. I want to continue to do that as an elder person and address the issues that will make police accountable for their actions.
Thank you. Would you like me to restate the question?
You don't have to.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so to answer that same question, so what did I do? And as a community member and as a Block Watch organizer, I involved the police liaison and also with the police captain of District 4, stayed in communication with them by going to the crime analysis meetings every month, keeping our residents aware of what was happening around them. So it's really important to me to build relationships on all levels. And building that relationship in that fashion with the police department really helped the residents feel comfortable with what was going on and the job that the police officers were doing. I used to say to them that the police can't do it alone, but with our help, they can do a better job of decreasing the crime in our areas. So we, as a community, I really believe in building that strong community. And the way to do that is having our neighborhood block watch signs. So it's some very simple things that we can do. When we work on taking care of our communities and keeping it clean, we're making it uninviting for those who don't belong there. So all in all, it's really just that the police cannot do the job alone, but they need our help to do it. We have to be the eyes and the ears for them, and then we have to do our part so that we make their job a little bit easier, but we make our quality of life a little bit better.
That concludes the questions from the African American Roundtable, and now we'll begin our questions from the community that was submitted online. Mr. Ball, this next question will also be for you. Do you live in the 9th District? And if so, how long have you lived here? And if not, how do you know the needs of the 9th District?
Yes, I live in the 9th District. I've lived in the 9th District for approximately 30 years. In that 30-year period, I've seen the district change, grow, and even had some negative aspects to it, but this is still the district I love. I raised my kids here. I lived here for the last 30 years and enjoyed my life here. But I see a better future for this district with a lot of work and a lot of sweat.
Thank you.
Okay, do I live in the 9th District? I lived in the 9th District for a few years, about 7, from 2017 to 2022, just of October, as of October last year. I am in transition right now. How do I know what's going on in the 9th District? Because I am a 53-year resident of Milwaukee, specifically the northwest side of Milwaukee. I live not too far away in District 2, which is adjacent to District 9. So what affects District 9 has also affected me. So when we look at the Northridge corridor, that was as very much a part of my life for all this time as it has been just for District 9 residents. So because I utilize the services and resources that are available to District 9 residents, anything that affects residents in District 9 has also affected me over the years. So I have been a very proud member of the northwest side of Milwaukee, right adjacent to District 9. So therefore, anything that happens there, again, would happen to me. And so I would be abreast of everything, and I would do what I can to make quality of life for all residents from District 2 to District 9 as improved as much as we can.
And I will pose my first question to you, Ms. Taylor. What will you do differently from previous alders that will ensure that the needs and the issues of the district are taken care of?
Okay. I don't want to take anything away from anyone else, but I do think that one of the things that make my approach a little bit different is to be an extremely good listener. I do that as a profession. I am a school teacher of 17 years, and what make me good at my job is to be a listener to the students that I have every day. And so that care and compassion that I have as a listener to my students is what I will take into District 9 to have that care and compassion for the residents and listening. In addition to that, having that mutual respect with the residents and being able to respond to what their concerns and complaints are, and being present and visible is a priority of mine. That's what I wanted as a resident, and that's what I intend to give as an alderperson.
Some of the Northwest residents have felt a little deserted the past 6 months to maybe a year. How would you
I can
keep
barely
in
hear you.
Yep.
How would you keep in contact with them and to make
I
sure?
can barely hear you, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Northwest residents have felt somewhat deserted in the past 6 months, maybe to a year. How would you assure them that if they contact you, that you will respond? Can you assure them that you will respond if they send an email or call?
Yes, I can ensure them that I will definitely respond. I have an email out right now that residents have sent messages, and I've responded to all the messages that I have received. That is something that, again, I want to be visible and present in the community. I want to be part of the solution to the community, and the only way I can do that is to make sure that I respond. So any calls, texting, or emails, even by social media, I will definitely respond.
Thank you. And Mr. Ball, you want to answer that question, or do you want me to repeat it?
Repeat it, please.
Okay. What would you do differently from previous alders that will ensure that the issues, needs of the district are taken care of?
First of all, I have an open door policy. We always open and receptive to any communication from my constituents. As a matter of fact, I will ask them that communication. I think it's important to know that when you are an alderman, you are a public servant. We work for the community. You don't work for yourself. And what you do is for the betterment of the district, not for your own gratification. It's important to be humble when you're an alderman, because it's important because you represent people and you want to represent them as well as possible. That's why you must have open door of communication. You must be open and receptive to listening to whatever people are telling you, and act on it in a positive fashion, so that you can give them feedback, and also you can talk about the things that are needed in the district. It's important to know that they are the people we represent. We must represent them well, and all we can do is listen to the concerns and to follow through and make sure you're doing the work that they want done.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. The next question is to Ms. Taylor. If elected, what will be your first priority for the district?
My first priority is tending to the safety of residents in District 9, and also looking at the housing issues that District 9 face. As I have gone door to door, I have learned that many of our residents are living in housing that is probably a little less than acceptable, and that's something that has to be addressed. They have expressed their concerns to me about that, and I do intend to work with them and the powers that be, those stakeholders, to try and address many of those issues. Because first and foremost, we have to make sure that's at the bottom of the, it should be at the top of the list or the bottom of the list, however you arrange it. But we have to make sure that safety and housing is first addressed before we can start looking at other things. Next is often many residents have expressed concern about the Northridge Mall corridor, and so we do want to begin to look at that and address that issue as well. And then we need to look at the detention facility that's coming about and make sure that we have answers to our questions regarding that as well. And making sure that residents understand that with that coming into place, that safety is going to be paramount, and we need to make sure that all residents are ensured that their safety is addressed.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, that same question to you.
Ma'am, before you go any further, I think it's important to know this is a forum, and a forum, questions are answered to both sides and answered by both sides. And that's what's occurring.
We are going back and forth. I'll ask her a question, and then I'll pose that same question to you.
I can't hear you. Your voice is going out in and out.
We are doing this in the forum. I will pose a question to Ms. Taylor, and then I will pose that same question to you. And Delisha is doing the same thing. She will pose a
Given
question
one
to
question
you.
last time when she was given 3.
I'm sorry?
I was only given one question when she was given the last 3.
No. Maybe you didn't hear them, but I thought you answered them. The same questions that we have asked Ms. Taylor, we have also asked you. I can backtrack just a little bit. We ask you, Ms. Delisha asked you, do you live in the 9th district? We asked Ms. Taylor that same question. The next question, what would you do differently from other alders? That question was posed to Ms. Taylor, and it was also posed to you. So now the next question, I asked Ms. Taylor, and now I'm posing that question to you. So we haven't asked her any more questions than you have been asked. So are you willing to answer this next question?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. If elected, what will be your first priority for the district?
One first priority for the district is something that I think is important for the district. And I'm working on it now, whether I'm elected or not. I'm working on it right now. I was, as recently as today, I talked to the ARPA finance manager, Ms. Fowler, about ways to fund reckless driving reduction methods in the district. I walk around schools, I walk around Stewart, I walked around Thoreau and saw cars speeding by. And one of the things that I've talked about is having either roundabouts or speed bumps to reduce the speed in those areas. She gave me 2 methods where I could actually write grants, because I'm a grant writer, to have those things funded before the election. And that's what I'm working on now.
Okay, so that would be your first priority.
That's one of my first priorities.
Okay, okay.
The other priority is the reduction of the non-fatal shootings, the amount of rapes are going on. I'm a father of a daughter, a granddaughter. I'm a husband of a beautiful wife. I have 6 sisters. Rapes are going on 29% in this district, and it's not even being talked about. That's a few of the things that I like to address. And another thing I like to address is also the amount of lead that our children are drinking. We talk about the violence that's going on in our city, not seeing the effect of lead on behavior, making it aggressive, and other things. We need to address the lead issue as well.
Thank you, Mr. Ball.
We're going to keep sharing. Mr. Ball, the next 2 questions you get to answer first, and then I'll give it to Ms. Taylor. So my question to you is, as an alderperson, what are your plans to invest and revitalize sections of the district?
I think one of the basic things for revitalizing the district for business is that the access to capital is very important. I think there's certain funding sources that will allow for that to happen. I think grants like BizStart and Bruce City Match, Greater Milwaukee Strive One Business, and MEDC Community Advantage programs are ways that will give funding to those businesses. But there also must be some support from the city as well. Support from the city is important for business to thrive. We must look at least some tax advantages or something that we can give them to keep them viable.
You had mentioned support from the city. Can you just expound on that? How would you get support from our city council?
Support from the city would be in the form of regulations that are developed to facilitate safety for the business. There's a plethora of things that can happen, and I can't go through all of them now because of the time constraints of 2 minutes. But there are a lot of different things that businesses can do to promote positive business development.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Okay, so I think I'd like to search out small businesses, make starting up businesses or inviting large businesses, looking at doing that, but making it, creating opportunities for people to learn about starting up businesses. So having those kinds of events in our area, in our district, letting people know what the opportunities are so that we can invite more businesses. We have some right now that are just started up and they're doing really well, but we need more of that. So I was just talking with someone today looking for some things like coffee shops and things, small businesses that we need to have in our district where we can enjoy. So, but a lot of this will involve talking with our neighbors and getting more ideas and seeing what would be most beneficial.
Thank you. Hello. Okay. All right. Third mic is a charm. All right.
That sounds a lot better. Thank you.
Mr. Ball, how are you planning on engaging the community to help build Granville redevelopment?
I think it's important that engaging community that you get a conversation. That conversation will listen into meetings that will go into just a process where we're learning out exactly what the community needs and wants. As a public servant, you are addressing the needs of the community. You want to do what's best for them and make sure that you're addressing all their concerns. The Granville area has a lot of positive things going, but it can be even better with cooperation of one business community and the people themselves and the elder person working in unison to make sure that the district grows. I think that's an important aspect of Granville that has not been shown and not been talked about. The community we have a wonderful community. When you walk the community and talk with people every single day, they're so positive about being able to live in an area that's multiracial, that has a lot of assets to it, and it's just a beautiful place to live. But I think it could be even better with improvement and with the cooperation of the elder person and the community in one aspect. And that is to work hard and develop this community.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Okay, working with Granville Business Improvement, everything is really about educating the residents about what opportunities are available. And so working with the Granville community as well as other organizations that's in our district to educate our residents about what's available to them, I think is going to be most important. To just stay really involved with Granville. I know that they meet once a month, and so make sure that I'm present so that we can make sure information is being disseminated to the residents of District 9.
Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to make a quick announcement for anybody who's in the room. If you are parked in a gray Nissan Altima in the parking lot, FYI, your trunk is open. You might want to go close that. Gray Nissan Altima outside, your trunk is open. Please go close that. We don't want any of your things to be harmed. Also, it looks like most folks in the room have food, but please, y'all don't hesitate to get up and grab food. Obviously, most of the room has grabbed what they need to. But feel free to grab food, and then around 6:45, I'm gonna allow just a brief intermission just for my moderators to get up and get some food. So we're gonna do one more question between the candidates. We're gonna pause doing the information so my moderators and my volunteers collecting questions in the MAC can get food. But other than that, help yourselves. We got plenty of food to go around. Thank you guys, moderators, for letting me make that announcement. I know y'all were not prepared for it.
Thank you.
Mr. Ball, do you know what
Yes, ma'am.
kinds of grants are available for business owners in the area looking to purchase buildings that have been vacant for years?
I think the most important thing is vacant for years. Buildings that have been vacant for years are either put up on the city rolls or sheriff's rolls for sale. I think once those are done, I think there are four types that are available that process is doing. I think the city has the FACAD grants, they have the White House grants, and I think another is the the FIR grant, I think it is. But these are grants that allow for things like signage, that allow for the external things that allow for the buildings on business to grow.
How would you, as an older person, publicize this information for constituents?
I think one of the parts of an older person is to maintain a newsletter, also to communicate either through email, texts, any way possible to communicate those items. I would even go as far as to even develop a Zoom meeting that can allow for everybody to come to it and to talk about those issues. But the important thing is to communicate and be accessible to the community. I think once you do that, everything else will fall into place.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor, do you need me to repeat that question?
No, that's okay.
So one question and a part A to that question.
Grants that are available, usually when I think about starting a small business, we do have a institution that's in in Milwaukee that many people utilize, and that's WEBIC. And so Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative. And they're very instrumental in helping small businesses get started with funding. But there are many other ones. There was a Small Business Recovery Initiative grant also sponsored by the county. And so just making sure that that information gets out to the residents is important so that they know what's available. That's, again, another resource that I like to make sure everyone's aware of. And how do you get that information out? Again, utilizing every mode of communication that we can. So again, as Mr. Ball stated too, doing newsletters, when attending different events and someone is asking questions, making sure, that I have that information available if it's requested, and just using all the different modes of communication. I do have a Facebook page that is already set up for District 9 residents can access that and get information as well about what's going on in the city. So I make sure that I do post that.
Thank you. And I guess this is intermission?
All right. Just wanted to make a quick announcement to folks. We're not getting back started just yet. Thank you to my videography team for letting me know to turn the mic on. Mr. Ball, I hope you can hear me as well. If not, I will repeat. We're getting started again around 6:55. That's about 2.5 minutes from now, maybe. So now is your final time to use the bathroom if you need to, grab that extra little bit of food if you need to, grab your drink if you need to. We'll be getting back going around 6:55. Mr. Ball, did you hear me? Mr. Ball, I hope you heard me. If
Yes,
not,
I
we might
did.
have to.
Yes, I did hear you.
Okay, great.
We're going approximately how many more questions?
There's a number of other questions. This forum goes until 7:45.
Okay.
All right, everyone, I just want to bring us back. Sorry about the tardiness. We needed a little bit more time. Please keep your conversations, side conversations to a minimum. We're coming back to the forum, the Q&A portion. Mr. Ball, are you with us? Mr. Ball, come on in. Great. And my question takers are in place. My moderators are in place. Hopefully everybody got the food they needed. All right, and we'll jump right back into questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, what's your
Yes.
plan for the old Northridge Mall? And do you know of any plans currently in place regarding the old Northridge Mall?
Yes, I've stayed in contact with Mrs. Onan, who is the bid director. And I know that the charades that were developed, I think there are 5 of them, that were used as a model for the new development that could happen in Northridge Mall. Uh, I've always advocated that there should be a training center, one that would be a national model for fire and police and first responders, training them here and treating them properly. I thought that in Fox Valley did something similar 8 years ago, and it did so to the point where they're overcrowded all the time. If we did here in Milwaukee, where the greater expertise is and the greater amount of access here, we would be a national model and almost an international training center, which would bring in revenue, would bring in new businesses, would bring in hotels and the whole 9 yards. Plus, it would stabilize the area around Northridge as well.
Thank you. I don't think I asked you, right? Okay. Do you need me to repeat that question?
No. You don't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, well, right, oh, wait, I'm not on. Hello? Okay. The Northridge Mall area is owned by a private company. And right now, the first goal is to get the building raised. So that company has to do that. We can't just go in and just do that without taking ownership of it as the city. And so that's the first thing that has to be done. Secondly, if we're going to do anything over there, then it has to be a collaboration with the residents of District 9. But it's not just something that I'm going to say, hey, this is what we're going to put here. But going door to door, things that residents would like to see there are viable things such as a green space. Some residents have mentioned that they want buildings put there with apartments on top. But all those things are possible after the building comes down. And so the city cannot do that. It's really out of the city's hands until those owners adhere to the court order to raise the building. And that has to be done first.
Thank you.
This first question will be for you, Ms. Taylor. What is your plan to address the need for a proper Black education and schooling?
As a 17-year teacher, there are many, many priorities, but one of the things that I think that the schools are missing right now are classes that teach life skills. We've taken that out. We focus on career and college ready. And so I agree that we do need to do that, but we also need to focus on life skills because we've gotten away from the arts. We've gotten away from wood shop. We've gotten away from home ec classes. Those things where some of our other children thrive when they may not be thriving academically, but they're still encouraged through other classes that are going to teach them life skills. And so I have been advocating tirelessly to get some of those life skill classes back in place for many of our students that are going to need those to thrive. We look at funding to encourage more programs in this that can come about in the schools, allocation of our funds and where those funds are going, so that we can supply our students with those other things that they need, right? Other programs, so that again, I just really advocate for that because we need that for our students.
And there
Okay.
was actually a part 2 to that question that I'll say very quickly, which is, what are your plans to help develop after-school programs for youth or community and social programs in this district?
That's where we're going with those allocations of funds so that we can create programs. We have many programs. We have the Violence Free Zone is a program. We have the Running Rebels. Those are groups that have come into the schools to help with our students. And but there's many, I would like to see those funds being used to create programs in the community if we are not putting them back into the schools. I often talk with the principals and with the school board about maybe we are a community school. We need to bring the community into the school so that they bring those trades with them, and we begin training our students so that they're not just leaving school not having skills to go out and, as we said, be career ready. We need to make sure that we're bringing those programs in so that our students are leaving with being career ready.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, I'm going to repeat the question for you. It's a 2-part question. The first question is, what is your plan to address the need for proper Black education in schooling?
Proper Black education in schooling is important. The NAEP, which is a national exam of readiness for schools, has shown that in our district, our students are falling far behind what even pre-COVID limits, pre-COVID rates, to the point where we're at a, how can I say, we're at a point where we need to aggressively address the educational levels of our children. To do that, we have to bring in the superintendent, we have to bring in outside external groups that will work with after-school tutoring, but also after-school program that's positive for children as well. I too am an educator. I taught 26 years in Milwaukee Public Schools, and I was the technology coordinator at Marquette University and an associate dean at MATC. Education is important for our children, but they must be ready to address the needs of our community. They must be able to address not only college level courses, but courses that will give them the math and reading skills so they can be productive workers in our community. I think we need to address those as soon as possible. And to do that, we have to have after school tutoring programs. Now, I was also chairman of the board of the Police Athletic League, and we had after school locations in almost every individual school in certain areas. Plus, as technology coordinator, I built technology learning centers in those schools that had after-school programs that deal with education, that deal with the education, that deal with all the aspects of learning, but also give them the ability to learn their sports skills. I think it's important to take our children where they are and raise their levels up. I know as an educator, I was also an IB certified teacher, but I taught alternative school as well. And so I knew that developing critical thinking skills in my children were important so that they could do anything they would really want to do in their lives.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor, what is your plan on tackling police genocide, access to wealth, gentrification, and mass incarceration for our people? Online register question, y'all. The second part of the last question was, what are your plans to develop after-school programs for our youth, community, and social programs in District 9, which he thoroughly answered. Thank you, Mr. Ball. I'm going to repeat the last question because this online registered question was loaded. So, Mr. Ball, listen up to this one too. It's a doozy, but I'm gonna ask you second. So, this question for Ms. Taylor first is, what is the plan on tackling police genocide, access to wealth, gentrification, and mass incarceration for our people? And for those who are watching who may not be familiar with gentrification, it is the taking over of disenfranchised neighborhoods by our white counterparts and then making those areas in their likeness. So, Ms. Taylor.
Am I first?
No, Ms. Taylor is first. Ms. Taylor is first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, quite loaded. But in regards to genocide, I think it's real important to educate our people. It's real important to have positive activities for people to partake in. I often have a conversation with others, and sometimes we look at an old phrase that says, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so we need to not leave people idle. So that's one way. The other thing is to make sure that our community has what they need. When we have what we need, our basic needs are met, then it's less likely that we're going to partake in negative activity, right? In regards to gentrification, to take pride, to maintain ownership, so find avenues and ways for our community members to maintain ownership of where they live, make home buying a little bit easier, educate people on how to buy homes, so that they continue to want to stay where they are and not sell. And give me that last part one more time.
Mass incarceration.
Mass incarceration. Again, I had started a career in law enforcement, and I changed and became an educator. Okay. Last sentence.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
The question is, what is your plan on tackling police genocide, access to wealth, gentrification, and mass incarceration?
The term genocide means to kill. And whether it's the police killing us or we killing ourselves, neither is something that should be, how can I say, it needs to be addressed. Gentrification has been going on for quite a long time in our community. We can see it just walking in other districts. I remember going on North Avenue, knowing that Holly Park was an extremely black district, and it's now white. But that also goes back into wealth. 75 years ago, this country gave low and no interest loans to millions of people, but not one of those loans went to a black person. That in itself builds wealth, because wealth is done through property. Property is hand down, and that's wealth. Not even able to hand down that wealth and not having to value your property through laws like redlining and other things that destroy the wealth in our community. What we need to do to address those issues are, one, getting access to, the ability to affordable housing, the ability to wages that are family sustaining, so that we may be able to gain wealth with our property acquisition. Now, you also talked. Did I miss anything? I think there was.
There's also mass incarceration.
Mass incarceration is caused by a lot of the other social issues that are there. One, we all want to be able to give our families the things they need, food and everything else. If you can't access jobs or the ability to a sustainable family wage, that will force you to do other things that are not available. We have to give opportunities to everybody in our community, not just a certain segment. And it's important that we allow work for those things as a community.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would direct this question to Ms. Taylor first. If elected, will you prioritize repairing streets in the district so residents can stop spending so much money on their cars and tires?
And the answer is yes. Yes, I've had many conversations with residents. Just driving back and forth, trying to get to the areas in which I have been canvassing, I have hit many of those potholes. And each time I go, oh, man, and then worry about whether or not I've done damage to my car. So I know if that is a worry for me, then it's also a worry for the residents. And yes, something definitely needs to be done. There have been times where I've stood and talked to residents, and as I'm talking to them, we see the same thing happening to others. So yes, repairing our streets is a definite priority.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, if elected, will you prioritize repairing streets in the district so residents can stop spending so much money on their cars and tires?
I agree. The answer is yes. The answer is yes, because the damage to the cars and other things are prevent you from putting income into your household. But also to understand that the Department of Transportation also has allocated about $1 million for road improvement through our district, 76th Street, and there's some other money that's not in the Department of Education, the Department of Transportation. I think that should be accessed and be able to use in the road improvements as well. I think last year, there was approximately about $900,000 taken out of the budget for the 9th District that would also have those repairs done in our roads. But yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ball, and I'll turn it over to Delisha.
That now concludes our pre-registered questions from our online community, and now we'll be receiving questions from the audience.
I will ask the question of Ms. Taylor first, and then I'll go to Mr. Ball. The juvenile facility has been 6 years in the making from the legislation to close the facility to the 24-member state committee that identified the state land available. What is your position on this?
As I have shared with many of the residents, that my position is to stand with the residents. And so if the residents are saying that that is something that they do not want in their backyard, then that's the way I'm going to stand, because I'm representing the residents of District 9. We do have lots of questions that we do need to have answered. And so I do share with the residents on a daily basis that there are some questions that I know they're asking of me, and I'm in turn going to make sure we get answers for those questions. And so some of those questions are centering around safety. Some questions are centering around hiring practices, and others are centering around education of our young people to lower the rate of recidivism.
Mr. Ball, the juvenile facility has been 6 years in the making from the legislation to close the facility to the 24-member state committee that identified the state land available. What is your position?
First of all, I'd like to say that I also walk around the district and talk to quite a few people. People I talked to had fear of the facility at first until I was able to talk to them about why that facility was put there. The Lincoln Hills facility had 15 papers that were written about how our children were being abused at that facility. They were being abused at that facility. There was a child that was 13 years old. He had hit over the head with a flashlight and had mace sprayed down his throat. And that's just one example. He only got a $5 million sentence. I think it's important to understand that those are children. As a deacon in the Baptist church, as someone who, as an educator who has taught students that went to Lincoln Hills, I think it's important that we understand those are still children, and they must be addressed as children. But one major concern is that if we're not going to address the needs of children, will we ever address the needs of adults? Yes, I advocated for that center, but the decision was already made even before I even announced. But I advocated because I taught those type of children. And the fear of the facility is something that many people are talking about. As a matter of fact, I even talked to some residents that I'm a lifetime certified teacher. I would donate 2 hours a day to go teach those children just to show that the facility is not a danger to the community.
So what is your position on the facility? Maybe I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear because I said
Okay.
I advocated.
Thank you. Thank you. Delisha?
Mr. Ball, how do you plan to advocate and allocate funding for community-based responder programs to assist in nonviolent, no life-threatening emergencies, including mental health, domestic dispute, and substance abuse?
I think it's important to fund those things. I think currently what's happening is something called a CART system, where response teams have either a clergy person or a community counselor that goes in and to lower the temperature in a lot of places. Mental health is an issue that has to be addressed. COVID has shown that there's mental health issues through our whole community, and we have to address that head on. And everything that's required of police officers and the presence, but a peace officer there to make sure things go straight. But there has to be some mental health issues that have to address, and someone who has the capability to do that. I'm familiar with that because my first degree was in psychology when I was in college. I saw the need for mental health even back then, and it's even more prevalent now due to COVID and some of the other things.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor, would you like me to repeat the question?
You can. Okay.
How do you plan to advocate and allocate funding for community-based responder programs to assist in nonviolent, non-life-threatening emergencies, including mental health, domestic dispute, and substance abuse?
To advocate and allocate those funds, I have to work in collaboration with the Common Council members that are already in place to make sure that those funds are, that we're, as a community, that District 9 is getting what we need.
Thank you. My next question will be to you again, Mr. Ball. The Election Commission has failed our community in multiple ways: stopping early voting, closures of voting sites, changing polling locations without notice. What did you do about it, or what will you do about this?
I work along organizations like Soul to the Polls and with Reverend Craig, who I've known all my life. I've done other things to promote voting in all areas. But education is the key thing. What I allow people to do is I told them how to access the Election Commission site where you can put your address in and tell exactly what poll you need to go to, exactly how to access your ballot on that point. It's about education. And this isn't something new. We've been rejected from polls for as long as we've been in America. As long as we were able to vote. The first black man in Wisconsin voted was Ezekiel Gillespie, and he wasn't allowed to vote. He had to go 5-6 times to attempt to vote, and then had to sue the state of Wisconsin Supreme Court to get the ability to vote. It's something that we must fight for. That's something that we can just take lightly.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I can go ahead.
All right.
I actually am going to concur with Mr. Ball in that respect. We do need to encourage our people to vote. We do need to not let anything stop us from exercising our rights and keep our power. Our power is speaking up and voting. And so we need to not let anything stop us from doing that. I think that's really just the main answer to that question, is just not to do that, not to allow anything that has come about taking away early voting or absentee ballots or boxes that we can submit votes in. Don't let that stop you. Continue to exercise your power.
Thank you.
Mr. Ball, what are your plans for mental health resources?
I plan on mental health resources to make sure that there's access on all levels, especially for children. Right now, our children are the main source or the main reason why mental health is needed throughout our community. The episodes of mental health issues have risen so dramatically that we have to address it as a community as quickly as possible so that we're not harming our children in a lot of different ways. Also, the adults, a lot of that crime that has occurred has occurred because of lack of mental health issues, a lot of mental health therapy, and a lot of other things. We have to give access to our whole community. I think that was important that the Biden administration has made mental health as a priority and it will allow for greater access to all communities, especially communities of color, because they're in need of drastically and need to be addressed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. And I pose that same question to you, Ms. Taylor.
Okay. I'm just going to say it again, that I am a 17-year teacher for MPS. And over the years, I've watched many of my students suffer a great deal sometimes. And what they need is they need to have a safe space and they need to have a trusted adult. And so I create that safe space in my classroom and I have become that trusted adult so that they, and build that relationship so that they feel free to come and talk to me about any and everything that they need to talk about. In the community, we have a phone number, 988. We need to make sure that the community is aware that they have a resource. So when they are dealing with issues that seem to be too much for them to handle, that 988 is a suicide crisis line that they can call. I recently saw that there is a sticker that establishments can put in the window to be a safe place for those who are dealing with, for the LGBTQ community, as well as those that are have gotten caught up in human trafficking. And so, but making sure that the community is aware of the resources that are available, creating safe spaces, and making sure that adults are aware of those resources so that they can utilize them.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, do you support business development in the 9th District if it is a club, or strip club, or a bar? And will you respond to both?
When I respond to both, would I support business if it's a strip club? I would not want strip clubs in the 9th District. But that's just my personal opinion, because being a Baptist deacon, that's my choice of business. And so I wouldn't advocate for something like that in the 9th District. No, I wouldn't.
Thank you. That is my last question. Did I skip you?
That's okay.
Do you need me to repeat that?
Yes, can you?
Do you support business development in the 9th District if it is a club or bar or strip club? And please respond to both.
Okay. I support small businesses coming into the district. I support businesses that the community feel that that would be beneficial for the majority of the community. I will reserve from saying whether it is a bar or a strip club, but we're going to go with what the community feels that is beneficial for them. So that's going to have to be a collaboration with the district, with the residents in the district.
All right, my next question starts with you, Ms. Taylor. Do you support schools that are non-traditional public schools? If so, why or why not?
I am an MPS teacher, so naturally I want funds coming to the district because there's many things that we need to do to help the students that are in the district. There are schools, of course, charter schools that are servicing some of our students. And there sometimes are a need for children to be educated in different environments. So I'll use my own children. I have 3 of my own, And looking at their education, my one child thrived in MPS, whereas another child needed to be placed in a private school because he needed the small environment in which he did thrive in that environment as well. But again, I think that funding is the real issue there when we're looking at that. And right now, I know that for MPS students, we need as much funding as we can to provide that quality education that we desire for them to have.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, would you like me to repeat that question?
No, you don't have to. We're talking, the key word you said was public school. Public schools don't have to be cracker box schools that are just set for things that are not available. Public schools vary, and public schools address a series of issues going in all areas. And so, yes, I support any school that educates our children, that will educate them in the positively address their needs. And we just can't put them in just any certain school and say, this is how you should be. We must be flexible in teaching and learning our children so that they can grow along their lines and they can go to be the individuals they want to be and not who we want to be. And the only way we can do that is by giving them access to an education that's true, that's instructive, but will show them that they love our students. One thing that as an educator, and I've been in education a long time, one thing I want all my students to know, that you're safe in my school, you're safe in my classroom. Once they know that, they seem to thrive. It's when they fear coming to a school, and they fear going to an environment where they feel they will not work. I think it's important that we open our minds as well as our wallets to schools that are different and schools that will educate our children.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor, we're also going to start this question with you. How can the city work with MPS and other education institutions to improve outcomes for our babies?
And that's what one of the main things that I really would like to do is to begin building that collaboration and having those conversations with the district to just make sure that we are providing the programming, we're having the programming, that funds are being allocated into the schools fairly, equitably, so that our children are getting what they're due in all schools, not picking and choosing which schools are getting funds allocated to them, what improvements are being made at only specific schools, but at all schools, because all of our children have a right to that free and public education.
And Mr. Ball, would you like me to restate that question?
Yes, please.
How can the city work with MPS and other education institutions to improve outcomes for our babies?
I think it's important. It's important for the city to develop schools that are you talking about the charter schools that the MPS has or the charter schools that the city has? Or exactly what differentiates public schools from what you're stating? I might add.
All of them.
I think it's important educationally that we address the needs of all students. But it's also important, as Ms. Taylor said, that the needs of public schools should receive majority of the public funding. And to do that, and to put it in other areas would be different. But I think it's important that we adjust the needs of all of our students and find ways to pay for those needs. Tough decisions have to be made, and I guess somebody has to make those decisions. I'd rather it be me.
Thank you so much. We are nearing the end of tonight's forum. There will be one more question by Ms. Tucker. This will be the final question for both candidates, and then we will turn it over.
Mr. Ball, I received this question from the audience, from someone in the audience, and the question is, why are you not here physically?
I'm not here physically because I made a commitment to my sister-in-law who died of cancer last year, that I would look after my nephew. I'm here checking up on him. He's in medical school where I'm at right now, and I want to make sure that happens. Also, this is the time I bring my wife along, make sure she gets the recuperation that she has in her job. She's got a very strenuous job. So that's why I'm not here, present there. But I also make sure that I also get representation in places I have, that people that are in the audience there who are talking. I make sure that I have my information, my mailing. I talk daily. Like I said, I talk to the people at City Hall throughout the day. Make sure that I'm contacting them, my campaign's running properly. But I also I keep my tabs on how the district is doing and the things that I think are important for the district and the people that communicate with me on a regular basis.
Thank you, Mr. Ball, so much for answering that question.
Raisha?
Thank you, Delisha. Let's clap it up for our candidates and moderators, please. Listen, we got through a substantial amount of questions tonight. I think based on my count, there's only maybe a handful of additional questions that we'll turn over to the candidates, Mrs. Taylor and Mr. Ball, to respond to. And so I'm going to ask that if you submitted a question that you did not hear answered tonight and you have not already put your name and your contact information on it, that you find me so that we can add your name and contact information to your question and make sure that we turn it over to the candidates to get it answered. That is the process moving forward. But I wanted to thank Mrs. Taylor and Mr. Ball for joining us tonight. Like I said, we didn't feel like we saw enough of you all throughout the previous forums prior to the primary. And so the African American Roundtable saw fit to ensure that you guys got another chance to come up and we get to ask you some deeper questions. So thank you guys again for coming. Thank you as well to my moderators who, again, are residents. This is their first time. Clap it up. Clap it up. They did not have to do this. I'm going to do a couple more shout outs and then I'm going to let y'all know some next steps. I want to shout out my volunteer sort of team who are supporting by just grabbing all of the questions today and getting them to me so that I can get them to the moderators. Alex Williams, another moderator, and Shamika Moore, our office manager. And then, of course, the lovely videography team, Power 4 Media, who always comes in the clutch to make sure that we can provide space for the virtual viewers. What do I want to say? Some thank yous, some good nights. I want to direct everybody in person to the handout that has the faces of our panelists on it. Not the cameras on me. And I just want to walk y'all through it real quickly. So it has at the top, obviously, their bios, pictures, links to their wherever you can contact them and get to know them better. It also has a few tools from the African American Roundtable, including myself, Community Program Manager at AART, and the Executive Director, Marquesa Tucker Harris. We did a Facebook Live prior to the primary, just discussing the issues. Feel free to take a look at that. There is a blog that I wrote, again, prior to the primary, discussing the issues. Feel free to take a look at that. And there's a special treat. The African American Roundtable has a project called Northwest Side Stories, where we interview residents who live, work, spend time in communities in the Aldermanic Districts 5 and 9. And we've already interviewed Mrs. Taylor, and so hers will be coming out soon. And the plan is to interview Mr. Ball as well and get his out in the world. So keep an eye on the Northwest Side Stories webpage of the African American Roundtable website, because if you just want to get to know them on a personal level, like who is you, what you about, what's going on in your area of the district, you can definitely find that information through the Northwest Side Stories. I'm remembering what I put on my own handout that I made yesterday when I made this. We do not have capacity to hold an Aldermanic District Forum for the 5th, unfortunately, so we will not host that. But the plan is to roll out a Northwest Side Story for whoever is elected in Aldermanic District 5 as well, just so folks can get to know that person. And then folks are welcome to connect with me. My contact information is on the tables. It should also be on the handout because I'm happy to direct you to those candidates. I know them. I have been in communication with them. I have their contact information. I'm happy to connect you with those folks and make sure that you are able to connect with Aldermanic District 5. Thank you, Senator Taylor, for that question. No problem. So next steps, final pieces. So obviously there is a Facebook Live recording of this. Although it is alive, it is a recording that you can view at any time on the African American Roundtable's Facebook page. So if you're like, what was said? I didn't really catch that. Or that was a really good answer, and I know my homegirl or my neighbor is interested in that answer. Please share the recording. Again, you can find that on the African American Roundtable's Facebook Live. I was strategically avoiding the camera because I hate being on it, but thank you. So that's the first next step. The second, the African American Roundtable promotes for voting plans, myvote.wi.gov to make a voting plan. Election day is on April 4th. Tuesday, April 4th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. All right, I got my election information together. So you all make sure that you vote for either of these candidates. There's, I think, a cash bail referendum, Supreme Court candidate, something about the school board as well on the ballot on Tuesday, April 4th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. myvote.wi.gov to make a plan to vote. Like I said, keep an eye out on the African American Roundtable socials and website for additional information about election candidates. And that's about it. If you're in person, take food. We don't need it. We bought it for y'all. Make sure you grab your to-go plates and ask them about a to-go bag or something like that. But again, thank you all for joining us tonight. Be well, and we'll catch you all soon.
Thank you.